Welcome to the Valve Studio for April 12th, 2016. I'm just going to give you a little update today, and then we'll lead into what the next project is here at the Valve Studio. I spent a couple days doing research on the various topics for this renovation of what I got behind me, which will be covered in a couple episodes coming up here. I found a book called Getting the Most Out of Vacuum Tubes by somebody named Tomer, published in 1960. It's about a 160-page book. Read through the whole thing. It is full of interesting facts about history and the development of tubes and how the social change and technology actually impacted the design of vacuum tubes. Fascinating reading. There's a lot of insight in there, and I will try to introduce some of those topics along the way in today, as well as some things that happened with this thing I got behind me. Let me see here. And then I watched 3 videos from Mr. Carlson. He runs a thing called Mr. Carlson's Lab. The first one was on capacitors, whether or not you have them in backwards. And he specifically talks about non-electrolytic capacitors and how that affects your performance of your designs based on how you put them in. Now, I wrote on the YouTube comments that I'd been a double E here for at least 30 years, and like a 0.01 microfarad mica cap. Doesn't matter which way it goes in, but it actually does matter which way it goes in because of the way the capacitor is constructed internally with the foil. You want the foil to be on the ground side or the low impedance side. I learned a lot in that video. I didn't think I would, but it was good. And then I watched the other one I watched was I watched him rebuild a VTVM, which is a vacuum tube voltmeter. I have an old Simpson over here that's a passive meter, and it has an input impedance of probably something around 20K, which impacts if you're measuring high impedance circuits, which a lot of tube amplifiers are, that 20K actually will affect the reading that it's trying to take. So you can't really use that on certain things. If you do, you need to understand the impact of that. So a vacuum tube voltmeter, it got a high impedance. It's up at it's about 10 megohms, which is around where the digital meters are today. So he went through the entire process, how they work, how they do the functionings, how the AC bridge rectifier works, and that type of thing. That was inspiration for me to get my mind going. I have 3 of these meters I bought over that last few years at garage sales and estate sales, and I think I need to get one going here because it is nice to have that analog dial so you can watch it and look particularly at the change in that voltage over time, as opposed to counting digits and kind of estimating rise times with a counted digital meter, or as opposed to a nice smooth thing, you can get a sense of what's really going on. So I'm going to go ahead and get some of my meters going for here on the bench. I also did this thing behind me is an old turntable, and I did a lot of research into grid leak biasing, and I stumbled on a website called Fun with Tubes, just run by a guy named Max, and Max is a ham radio guy from long ago, and he made some statements in one of his pages about grid leak biasing, and I sent him a question, and he responded almost immediately. And what's amazing to me is that these people that actively keep their websites going for tube information, they love it. They love this stuff, and they love the fact that other people are getting into it. So I asked a question, he responded back. We had a little bit of an interchange there. And I got some information from him, and I sent him some information that I found as well. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get into renovating this turntable here. The other thing I did was I have these. I bought some of these giant power resistors on eBay. They're 2.7 ohms, and if you put 3 of these in series, that's 8 ohms. So I bought 6 of these things for like something like $2 a piece. And when I was started to work on this thing to find out if it was working or not, I realized I need a load resistor. Even though this little thing here is maybe like a 1.5 watt, maybe 2 watt amplifier, these guys are 2.7 ohms at 240 watts. I actually had these and I never really put them together. So I made this thing, okay? It's a little stand. I 3D printed it, and I stuck a little triode symbol in the base. And the base holds all 3 of these together, and then I just wired them in series, and I also put binding posts right here. I'm getting pretty dang dangerous with that 3D printer. So you may have heard me mention the estate sale that I went to in Los Alamos. This estate sale was the sale to end all sales. It was a collection of 50 years of Los Alamos National Lab equipment that a guy named Jim had collected through the salvage system down there. Here's a picture of Mike in the storage unit out by McDonald's, and Mike is Jim's neighbor, and he was helping Jim's widow liquidate stuff. And this stuff occupied Jim's house, Jim's garage, Jim's storage unit, Jim's backyard, and this 70 by 15 by 15 storage unit, floor to ceiling, packed tight. The sale went on for 18 months. I went back about 6 times over a period of 12 months, and I came back with about 3 truckloads worth of transformers and coils and test equipment and audio gear and tubes and winding wire and parts and all sorts of different stuff I collected there. Here's an example of some oddity things that he had. These are like the oddity tubes that Mike was trying to sell out in the McDonald's parking lot on a Saturday morning. So I picked up a lot of different things there, and this is like a giant triode, I believe, or a thrister or something. I don't know what this is, but these oddity tubes Mike actually kept to sell to a museum. I came away with about 7 boxes of tubes, and I ended up buying them because Mike was liquidating everything. You know, a box like this would be about $5, so I went ahead and picked it up. So I have about 7 of these boxes of tubes, and some of them are new old stock. Other ones are just, pulls from equipment, and I don't know what the disposition of any of these are, but they're not any good in this particular form because I need to actually sort them by type and by voltages and that kind of thing. Like here's a box of metal can tubes. There's probably about 150 in here. So I decided I better sort these. That's one of my things I need to do here for the valve studio. So I enlisted my granddaughter who loves to sort. So one afternoon we picked up the metal can tubes and we got some blue bins and Post-it notes and sorted tubes all afternoon. It was really, really very tedious. So I figured, well, if I'm going to do about 600 of these other tubes, I better come up with some other system. So I started looking at Google's web speech API. So my point, what I like to do is to speak into the microphone and say, 12AX7, and a back-end component actually grabs off this thing, and what I say converts it into a string and logs in a database, and then also tells me what bin to put it in. And this is the way that I'm going to do accounting as well as locating of all these various tubes, so that when I need something specifically, I can go get it. So here's a little demo of what I worked on for a couple hours one evening. So I modified the speech color changer JavaScript. It takes the words that I speak, strips off the first letter, and then it does a query over into this website using the JavaScript window open command. So let's see if it works. Over in the console, I'm actually printing out what I'm speaking as well, so you can kind of see what's going on. 12 Alpha X-ray 7. 25 Lima 6. 6 Victor 6. 6 Victor 6. 6 Alpha Coco 7. 6 Alpha 6. 12 Alpha 6. 25 L 6. 6 Jerry 5. 6 Jack 5. 2 Kilo 25. 6 Sierra Fox 5. So it works pretty well if I choose the right words. Well, that's it for the demo. "12 8 Alpha X-ray 7. 12 Alpha X-ray 7. All right, so that's what that's kind of the update. Let me go ahead and give a little introduction to what we're going to talk about in the next couple videos. This thing here. Actually, why don't I just cut it off right here for today, and we'll get into the renovation of this thing right behind me in the next episode here at the Valve Studio. So this is the Valve Studio for April 12th, 2016. Thanks for watching.